Hello plant people, Nora the Leca Queen. Thank you for joining me. Today I'm going to be giving you an update on some of the plants that you have already seen on my channel. So these are plants I would either have been putting up on a moss pole, giving it a bigger pot, or transferring it from soil to leca. So I'm just giving you an update, just trying to show you how they're traveling and what they look like now. Stay tuned to see what I have done with my Philodendron Verrucosum. And if you stick with me, I will also give you a snippet. I will show you what my Snow Queen wall currently looks like. So we'll get straight into it. And the first one is my Monstera Albo. So I've got my Monstera Albo here. When you last saw it, it was living in a small pot, and it is now on a moss pole living in a bigger pot in leca. I only just recently moved it to this moss pole, and actually I think at the time I was doing that, it hadn't yet developed this aerial root right here. So that's happening, and I figure that's going to go down there. It was a bit tricky for me to actually put it on this pole. Ideally, I'd have liked this node to be facing the moss, but it was really hard to sort of turn it around. It was just all over the place. So this will obviously grow and will just grow down into the leca. So that is my Monstera Albo, loving her new plastic sheet backed moss pole. And this is actually one of those plastic sheets that I got from Officeworks. So it's not the firm one. So yeah, you can make a nice, pretty long one and it will still look very good. So that's my Albo loving life. Next is my Philodendron Gigas, Philodendron Gigas, tomato. When you last saw this plant, I was actually putting additional cuttings into this leca and attaching them to the moss pole. But I just want to show you, look at this new baby here. Look at her. The color is so gorgeous. She's new, she's still hardening off, and she still has that brown, lovely golden color to her. But that's my Gigas, and these are the new cuttings. So they're still looking very healthy. They're lovely. So I'm really hopeful that they're going to grow up. There's not too much happening at the moment because we're now in winter in Melbourne, so growth has slowed down a bit. So not the best time to be doing things like this, but nonetheless, come spring, that is going to spring. Okay, who is next? This is my Philodendron Splendid. I love how those leaves just look so shiny and majestic and how they move. So when you would have last seen this plant, I was doing the long method of transfer from soil to leca. So this plant was living in soil. I did the long method on her. So I soaked her in my special sauce, which is Growth Technology Clone-X Clone and Root Zone combined. And when it was ready, I potted it up in this leca, and it's now living on a moss pole. And I must say, I'm very happy with how she's tracking, because you can see these are new leaves. These are actually new leaves that have come up, and the plant has actually attached to the moss pole. You can see that there's actually no Velcro that's attaching this plant to the moss pole. It has attached to the moss pole and it's just growing. So really, for this plant, the only way is up. So yeah, I'm really liking how this Splendid is just looking so marvelous. So following on with velvety plants, this is my Philodendron Melanochrysum. Another new leaf there. Look at how glorious that looks. That really looks fabulous, nice and shiny, looking very healthy. And you can see it's actually, so when I first got the plant, it was like this, nice and small, and the leaves are getting bigger and bigger. And look at this one there. So, something must have happened there, but they're getting bigger again. So I'm really happy with this. And again, this plant is actually well attached to the moss pole. There's no Velcro attaching it to the moss apart from the one that's right at the bottom. So I think this Melanochrysum is going really, really well. And yeah, those leaves are looking healthy and fantastic. So come spring, this is going to be a stunner. I've got here my tiny, tiny orchid. So this is the little orchid that I got for $1. It was on clearance and I got it for $1 and I thought, yeah, why not? She's been living in Leca and she's loving it. That's her there, that's her Leca. And I can see some of the roots through there. You can see some of the roots through there. I don't want to disturb her, so I won't take her out of that pot. She's living in a nice small net pot. She loves that and she's doing really, really well. And she's actually given me a new leaf since I've got her. This one is new, but yeah, I think she's really happy. She's just living, she's not living in my grow tent or anything. She's just living in my house, normal lighting, normal humidity, and she seems to love it. So yes, you can have an orchid having a lovely time in semi-hydroponics. So I'd really like to see how far we get with this one. That's my orchid. Next up is my Philodendron Mamei. That is my Philodendron Mamei. So I potted this one up into this rectangular pot. So I made this pot. This was a DIY pot. And I've got a video that shows how I do that, the link above. So this is a DIY pot that I made for this Mamei because this Mamei is a crawler. I wanted her to be crawling and not climbing. And since I've had her, since I've done that, she's had a few new leaves and there's a few, there, that's a new leaf coming there. There's another one coming, oops. Right. I won't show you too much what's happening under here because I don't want to get wet because that nutrient solution is actually coming through those holes. But she's really loving it in this rectangular pot, and I think she is one happy bunny. So that is my Philodendron Mamei living in her rectangular pot. We'll head back to moss poles. This is my Micans. This is my Philodendron Micans. This is another one that I got on sale, and she's another one that was undergoing the long method of Leca transfer from soil to Leca. And I then put her up on this moss pole, put her in this Leca, and you know, I mean, it hasn't been too long, but I'm happy that she's still looking very healthy. That's a good thing. We've had some new leaves since that happened. That's a nice little leaf that's come through since I put her on the moss pole. There's more growth coming there, and yeah, I think she's steadily coming on. That one there was a new leaf as well. So she's coming. I think she's doing really well. She's living in her pot, and like I said, it is winter, so there's not really much growth going on with my plants at the moment, but I think she's keeping steady and she will be fantastic come spring. This one right here is my Pothos Manjula. So that is my Pothos Manjula. That's how big she is. This plant is she's a miracle. Last time you would have seen this plant, I was showing you how she survived. So this plant developed root rot and virtually had no roots. And I had to regrow the roots and keep the plants alive while it was living on its moss pole. And I put it back in Leca after I got new roots. And look there. Look at that. She has new roots. She's thriving. And look at the size of that leaf. Look at that. She is doing so well. So this plant is really like the phoenix that rose from the ashes. She was pretty much dead. She would have been dead if she didn't have this moss pole that kept the plant alive through its secondary root system. Look at all those roots there. Those roots kept this plant alive, and I was then able to regrow the roots to come from the bottom using those secondary roots. So, you know, I will forever love a moss pole because of what it can do. And look at what it's done for my Manjula. That is my Manjula. She is loving, loving life. Next up, I have my, you know what this one is. That is my Syngonium Mojito. I love my Mojito, as you would all know by now. Last time you saw my Mojito, I was actually making it bushier. I was putting another plant in there, and that has taken very well, and it's just sitting there waiting to do its thing. But in the meantime, the rest of this plant, this is new, this one is new, this one is also new. Look at how fabulous, look at how glorious that leaf is. So I'm really loving, loving, loving this Syngonium Mojito. It is doing really, really well. So I got two surprises. I'm going to show you what I've done with my Philodendron Verrucosum, but I will also show you what my Snow Queen wall, my Enjoy wall, is doing. So here we are. I've got my Snow Queen wall with me. This is what my Snow Queen wall looks like. So the first thing to note is she's not dead. That's always a good thing. So when you last saw this plant, I was actually making this moss wall, and I was attaching the plants to the moss wall and potting it up in Leca. So I think this plant has done really, really well. The leaves are still looking good. I have had some growth there. You can see those teeny tiny leaves that are just coming through. They're still tiny. There's another one here. But yeah, it's a good sign. It shows that the plant is actually growing and is producing leaves. I'll take it out of the pot. So that's what that plant looks like now. So I actually just flushed this pot, and that Leca is nice and clean. I've just given it some fresh nutrient solution. So I do quite a number of things off camera actually. There's so much, you can imagine, there's so much that goes into taking care of my plants. I couldn't possibly record everything, but I will be putting up a lot of things on my Patreon, so look out for that. So yeah, this plant is doing really, really well. I'm happy with it, and I think she'll do even better come spring and the growing season comes. So my job is to just keep her alive and keep her happy till then. So I'll show you my Philodendron Verrucosum now. So I think when you last saw this plant, oh, I don't know if I think I was putting it up on a moss pole. I can't quite remember what I've done now. So this is my Verrucosum, and it looks the same as when you last saw it. Has there been no growth? What is going on? She's living in Leca, and that's her pot. Those are her roots. Yeah, she's okay. Leaves are doing well. See if I can show you the back of the leaf. That's the back, and that's the very, very hairy petiole. There it is. Nothing much going on, but you will notice that there's a cut right there. There's some propagation that's been going on. I have propagated this plant because I just don't like this single plant look thing going on. I just don't like that it's just one plant in there. So I want to have more than one plant in that pot. And a Verrucosum is not readily available for me anyway. So I just decided to chop her up and make more from the plant that I already have. So I'll show you those cuttings. So these are my Verrucosum cuttings. So I've got a leaf there, I've got another one there, and I've got another one there. So these guys are living in a Clonix clone and root zone solution, and I am trying to get some roots going so I can put them back in my pot and I can finally get my lovely Verrucosum to take off. I'll show you what those cuttings are doing. So I've got this one here. This is supposed to be a new leaf coming, and you can see the roots. So I've got some decent roots going over there. So it shouldn't be too long. And this one will actually be ready to be potted up. So that's one. And then I've got this one. This one is glorious. Look at the back of that leaf. How amazing is that? This one has got way more roots than the other one. And what I had done with this one is I'd actually air layered it. While this plant was actually still attached to the main plant, I got, a little bit of sphagnum moss, soaked that in Clonix Clone solution, and I just whacked it around that node. And I got these roots going. So when I chopped up the other one, I just took this along as well, and I put it in my CCS, and there's additional roots growing. So this one is pretty much ready to go back in the main pot, but I'll wait for the other plant cutting to be ready. I've got another one here. So I have 3 cuttings. So when I eventually actually pot all these up, there'll be 4 plants on that pole, and it's going to be to die for. So I've got that root going there. And I was actually able to pull quite a lot of this out of the moss pole. So a moss pole actually is great because it acts as a kind of propagation medium. So if you want to propagate your plant, all you need to do is cut it off, make sure that the moss is nice and moist, and just sort of gently tease them out, and you can get them out. And that's where I got that. So that again is just sitting in that solution until it's really ready to go back, and then I will put it back in with the mother plant, and that is going to be absolutely fabulous and glorious. So these are some of the plants that I have been tending to in your presence, and some of the ones that I've been doing all sorts of other things in the background. So just look out for my Patreon. I will have a lot of content on there that just shows what I'm doing with my plants on a day-to-day basis. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks. Bye.